This is Shawn Rhodes, and today we're going to be talking about rats and reptiles and how you can let your brain work for you, which actually means getting out of your own way when you're trying to master something. As we saw from the young masterful speaker here, you can use your brain for a lot of different things, and if you want to be able to master something, it's good to have an understanding of how your brain is structured to do that. So we're going to talk about an experiment that occurred at a laboratory, I believe it was MIT, where they put rats through a maze, which isn't that uncommon for experiments, but what was special about this particular experiment was they hooked the rats' brains up so they could monitor which levels of their brain were responding to what activity. And they found that as the rats traversed the maze the first few times, all parts of their brain were firing. They were really engaging on all fours, just like you would if you were driving on a new route to work, for instance. You're really paying attention to where you are, spatial relationships, and where you're going. What they discovered as the rats did this over and over dozens of times was that the top layers of their brain were less and less engaged, until finally just the reptilian part of the rat's brain, because believe it or not, assuming you believe in evolution, the mammalian brain has a lot to do with the reptilian brain. They both have this part called the basal ganglia, which is the root of your brain, the one that sits right above your spinal cord. That was the only part of the rat's brain that eventually was being engaged. So they said, this is interesting. I wonder how it works on humans. Well, have you ever driven home and not remembered the trip? Yeah? Or you're speaking on the phone to somebody while you're driving? Two very complex activities, responding to a conversation and also keeping your mind on all the things going on around you on the road. As you begin to master an activity, your basal ganglia is the one that's handling things in the background for you. You can think of it as your autopilot. Well, believe it or not, the steps to mastery are rooted in the basal ganglia. As you were giving your wonderful speech, the top part of your brain is figuring out, are they making eye contact with me? Am I engaging my audience? Whereas the lower parts of your brain are firing that speech, which you practiced. You did a great job. It was great. So for your own life, taking the basal ganglia and making it work for you in steps of mastery. Well, there's 5 M's to mastery, and this is whether you want to get better at your job, you want to be able to play a musical instrument, or you want to be an athlete or a martial artist. Any activity where you want to get yourself out of the way and just let the best parts of you flow through yourself. If you've ever had a peak experience in life where you weren't consciously aware of what was going on, you were watching it all happen around you, whether it was sports, or you were giving a speech, or you were doing some great thing in your work, whatever your career is, where it's like, man, I'm rocking right now. I'm not even paying attention to it, but it's coming out. That's the basal ganglia working for you. Letting the programmed steps of a task that you are very familiar with just come out in a natural flowing way. So what are the 5 steps you need to be able to understand how to engage the basal ganglia? Because eventually you're going to get to the point where it's unconscious. Whatever activity you're doing, whether it's navigating 275 at rush hour, or it's speaking on the phone with somebody while you're monitoring 3 children all running around getting into trouble, all these things are happening at the same time. So to do that, the 5 steps to mastery, the first one, the first M of those 5 M's is monitor the details. If you take any task and you break it down to the simple steps, the very simplest things you can do, that's the first M to mastery. If you remember the first time you got in a car, you had to pay attention to all 3 mirrors. You were engaging all of them. And if you were anything like me, you were trying to find that part in the middle of the lane that had been rutted by the other tires so that you could match your tire. You weren't very aware of the spatial relationships. Well, that's the first one. Monitor the details. The second one is you have to match your skills with your challenges. So that match part, if you are tackling a job that is too easy for you, you're not going to be engaging your basal ganglia in the way that it should be, the way that really maximizes your potential, your ability to create new things or to be innovative. So take a job, find the ones that are challenging to you, and if you're bored in your job now, that is a clear sign that you're not engaging all parts of your brain. You've mastered it clearly. You need to move on or add things to make it challenging. Well, the third M is mark your goals. You have to set goals in each job that you have. Monitor your progress using those goals, because you can do something your entire life, whether it's, for instance, martial arts, and if you are never set upon getting that next rank or mastering that certain system of movements, you'll never know if you're making progress. And the 5th one, the final one, is always be moving forward. When those rats were in that maze, in that laboratory experiment, they never realized that they were being studied in a way that would allow us to discover something about the reptilian brain, about the mammalian brain, the base part of the brain. But as they moved through this maze, they engaged less and less parts of their brain until finally they were firing on all 8. They were concentrating more on what was at the end of the maze than at the beginning. They were always moving forward in their progress. So as you move through your life in steps of mastery, these 5 M's, monitor, match, mark, mind, and move forward, always set the goal, the next goal ahead of you. And by that way in life, your basal ganglia will kick in, you'll be operating on autopilot, but the higher echelons of your brain, the ones that are more recent to our evolution that handle complex thought, trigonometry, which is a part of my brain that I'm missing because I have no skill for that at all. Those are the parts of your brain that will be engaged as you move forward. So the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, these are the things that you have to understand about your steps to mastering any goal in life, any step, any skill. And by that, you'll have something to thank every time you see one of those creepy little critters in your garage or in the fish tank or wherever you happen to be in life. So thank you very much for your time. Hope you guys